What you're proposing, or what the president is proposing here, does not sound like it's in keeping with American tradition when it comes to immigration. The Statue of Liberty says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free." Doesn't say anything about speaking English or being able to be a computer programmer. Aren't you trying to change what it means to be an immigrant coming into this country? If you're telling them you have to speak English, can't people learn how to speak English when they get here?
Well, first of all, right now, it's a requirement that to be naturalized, you had to speak English. So the notion that speaking English wouldn't be a part of our immigration systems would be actually very ahistorical. Secondly, I don't want to get off into a whole thing about history here, but the Statue of Liberty is a symbol of liberty enlightening the world. It's a symbol of American liberty lighting the world. The poem that you're referring to that was added later is not actually part of the original Statue of Liberty, but more fundamentally, the history, but more fundamentally,
you're saying that
history,
that does not represent
I'm saying that,
what
I'm
the
saying
country
that the
has always
notion,
thought of
I'm
as
saying the notion that
immigration coming into this
I'm saying
country?
the notion.
I'm sorry.
No,
that sounds
you're-
like
Jim, let me ask you a question.
That sounds like some national park revisionism.
No,
The
what I'm asking you is-
Statue of Liberty
Jim,
has always
Jim,
been
let me
a
ask you a
beacon of
question.
hope to the world
Jim,
for people to send
Jim, do you
their
believe-
people to this country,
Jim,
and they're not always going to speak
Jim,
English, Stephen.
Jim,
They're not
do you
always
believe-
going to be highly skilled. They're not always
Jim,
going to be
Jim,
somebody
Jim,
who-
I appreciate your speech. Jim, I appreciate your speech. So let's talk about this.
It was a modest and
Jim, let's
incremental
talk about
speech.
this. In 1970, when we let in 300,000 people a year, was that violating or not violating the Statue of Liberty law of the land? In the 1990s, when it was 500,000 a year, was it violating or not violating the Statue of Liberty law of the land?
Was it violating?
When it was 700,000 a year. No, tell me what years. Tell me what years. Tell me what years meet. Tell me what years meet Jim Acosta's definition of the Statue of Liberty poem law of the land. So you're saying 1,000,000 a year is the Statue of Liberty number. 900,000 violates it. 800,000 violates it.
You're sort of bringing a
Jim.
press one for English philosophy here to
Jim.
immigration, and that's never
For
been
Jim.
what the United States has been about, Stephen.
That
I mean,
you're,
that's
but
just
you're
the
also
case.
your statement's also shockingly ahistorical in another respect too, which is if you look at the history of immigration, it's actually ebbed and flowed. We've had periods of very large waves, followed by periods of less immigration and more immigration, and during the we've had
a period of immigration right now. The
Yeah,
president
it's-
wants to build a
it's
wall,
actually-
and you want
it's
to
actually-
bring about a sweeping change to the
surely,
immigration
Jim, you
system.
don't actually think that a wall affects green card policy. You couldn't possibly believe that, do you? Actually, the notion that you actually think immigration is at a historic law, the foreign-born population in the United States today,
With the
Jim,
new chief of
Jim,
staff on Monday, talking about how border crossings.
do you
were
really,
way
I
out.
want to be serious, Jim, do you really at CNN not know the difference between green card policy and illegal immigration?
Sir,
Are you
my
really
father
don't know
is a
that?
Cuban immigrant. He came to this country in 1962, right before the Cuban Missile Crisis, and obtained a green card. Yes, people who immigrate
Okay,
to this
so
country
Jim-
can eventually. People who
So, Jim,
immigrate
as
to
a
this
factual
country
question,
through
Jim.
not through Ellis
Jim,
Island,
as a
your
factual-
family
Jim,
may
as a
have,
factual
but in
question-
other ways, do obtain a green card at some point. They do it through a lot of hard work. And yes, they may learn English as a second language later on in life.
So, but
this
Jim-
whole notion of, well, they could learn, they have to learn English before they get to the United States. Are we just going to bring in people from Great Britain and Australia?
Jim, as actually, I have to honestly say, I am shocked at your statement that you think that only people from Great Britain and Australia would know English. It's actually, it reveals your cosmopolitan bias to a shocking degree that in your mind, no, this is an amazing moment. This is an amazing moment. That you think only people from Great Britain or Australia would speak English is so insulting to millions of hardworking immigrants who do speak English from all over the world. Jim, have you honestly never met an immigrant from another country who speaks English outside of Great Britain and Australia? Is that your personal experience?
Of course, there are people who come.
But
into
that's
this
not what
country
you
from other
said,
parts of the
and
world.
it shows your cosmopolitan bias. And I just want to say,
It sounds like to you you're trying to engineer the
I just wanna
racial
say-
and ethnic flow of people into this country. through
Jim,
this
that is one of
policy.
the most outrageous, insulting, ignorant, and foolish things you've ever said. And for you, that's still a really the notion that you think that this is a racist bill is so wrong and so insulting. Jim, the reality is that the foreign-born population into our country has quadrupled since 1970. That's a fact. It's been mostly driven by green card policy. Now, this bill allows for immediate nuclear family members to come into the country, much as they would today, and then it adds an additional points-based system. The people who've been hurt the most,
Saying that people have to be
the
English
people who've
speaking when
been,
they're naturalized.
the
What is this
people who've been,
English
the people who've
speaking
been,
component
the
that
people who've been
inserted
hurt
into
the
this
most
argument?
by the policy you're advocating are
What policy am I advocating?
apparently just unfettered, uncontrolled migration. The people who've been hurt the most by the
Anybody who
policy,
questions what you're doing is for
the
open
people who've been
doors.
hurt the most by the
That's
policy
it's
that
a
you're,
hybrid thing that-
the people who've been hurt the most by the policy you're advocating are immigrant workers and minority workers and African American workers and Hispanic workers.